All right, we want to welcome everybody to tonight's Cedar Rapids Community School District Board of Education meeting. Lots of new faces in the audience and lots of old friends, and I understand we'll have some introductions here. So with that, it is Monday, July 17th, 2017, and I'll call the meeting to order. Would someone like to read the approval of the revised agenda?
I move that the revised agenda of Monday, July the 17th, 2017 Board of Education meeting be approved as set forth, and that each item is considered ready for discussion and/or action.
Second.
Great, thank you. And this is a roll call vote.
Excuse me. Director Anhalt.
Aye.
Director Jansen. Aye. Director Humbles.
Aye.
Director Meisterling. Aye. President Labberty.
Aye. Terrific. With that, we'll go ahead and turn it over to you. Dr. Buck, welcome back to Cedar Rapids.
Yeah, thanks. It was good to be away, and it's good to be home. Yeah. Discover Summer Camp has recently wrapped up another successful session. More than 200 students from the district and the surrounding schools attended the camp this year. Held at Roosevelt Middle School for students in grades 3 through 5, the camp's most popular courses were the science-focused options, such as backyard science, CSI, and chemistry in the kitchen, where they conducted science experiments with everyday supplies found in the kitchen. Other popular new courses taught students how to code and even used the game Minecraft to create a digestive system that illustrated how humans process food. On Thursday, 600 laptops were delivered to the ELSC. We're excited about this important step the district is taking to more effectively make learning and academic success accessible to all of our students. These devices will be provided to students this fall who qualify for accessible instructional materials on their individualized education plan, or IEP, and will primarily be used as a text reader and as a tool which offers voice-to-text capabilities. We look forward to utilizing these tools to improve reading comprehension with our qualified students. This morning, teachers across the district began honing their skills, for the 2017-18 school year by learning the new art and science of teaching, presented by educational researcher Dr. Robert Marzano. Marzano's training emphasizes an instructional framework for high-level instruction designed to fine-tune a teacher's effectiveness in the classroom. Approximately 300 teachers will participate in the two-day trainings held here at the ELSC this summer. So there's 2 days this week and then 2 days next week for another part of the group. And then one last note here, one room at McKinley Middle School has undergone a unique facelift. The Grant Wood room, which is one of my favorite rooms in the district, has been recently remodeled and celebrates the school's history dating back to 1922. In addition to artwork created by artist Grant Wood, there's also memorabilia from and pictures of other accomplished McKinley alumni. Ms. Tina Gudenkoff from Grant Wood AEA has done the majority of the remodeling. Principal Jason Martinez and others are working to add artifacts to the current collection. The Grant Wood room will be open to community partners for meetings, and we look forward to showcasing McKinley's rich history in this way.
Back to you, John.
Wonderful.
Unless you want to hear highlights of the trip.
Well, you know, we had some good pictures on Facebook.
People love that, family, photos of your trip.
We'll have to get our tech folks in the back working on that for the next meeting. Maybe the board retreat or something will have an update on that. So, are there any board reports tonight?
No, but I just want to note all of the projects that were done this summer, done on time and on budget. We should be very proud of that and thank our voters and our community for supporting our efforts. Just thrilled to see all of that.
Great. I do want to just remind the board, I sent out an email just in August. We'll start really working on the coming year topics for board meetings and focus, and we'll have a board retreat, kind of a time when we'll go back through some of the agenda items that we've had, things that we've talked about, and make some priorities. So kind of think about that as we move forward into the next few weeks before our August work session. So Seeing no more reports, we do have a couple of requests to speak before the board under communications, delegations, and petitions. So first, I'll welcome Lawrence Winklowski to the podium. And Lawrence, I know you're familiar with this, so if you could just give us your name and address, and Laurel Day, our board secretary, will help keep track of the 5-minute time limit up on the screens for you, Lawrence.
Lawrence Winklowski, 4234 Monroe Road, Northeast Cedar Rapids. I sent an email to the school board, give people here a little background regarding their Iowa Association of School Boards legislative platform, in particular issue number 7, which was on mental health, which had stated supports increased statewide access to the funding for mental health services for children. And I sort of have an issue with that because of the constraints on it. And I wanted to, and I got a couple responses back from my email, and responses I got were they agreed with what I said, and I won't mention who they were so they don't get in trouble or people for agreeing with me. But the issue I have is we're all in this together. And to say that one organization is only going to support children and when it comes to mental health, and who knows what the next organization wants to do with mental health, and that I want to see all the organizations who are lobbying down in Des Moines working together for mental health for the state, not just one for the children, maybe one for union employees, or one for the elderly, and that. It's not about a subcategory or that. It's one of those things we don't expect we'll ever need in our life. But if you do need it, it makes such a large difference. And that in my lifetime, I've met some people, actually I recall meeting a 14 or 15 and 16-year-old kids who they were students. They just lost a child. And they were going to some support groups and stuff like that with their family, but don't know what sort of support they had. Take it, for instance, a kid whose parents are abusive or they're alcoholics, and that this is hard on those students. If a family is going through some rough times, or marital problems, this affects the children. For some reason, people think if they can use their kids as bargaining tools in a divorce or some sort of adult issues. I never understood that. But we have a school board. We have members from teachers union here. I don't know how many other organizations might be representative. On this one issue, I just want people to agree and work together to just say we need this for everyone. We talk about what's happening with healthcare. Well, mental health is the root cause of a lot of healthcare issues. Obesity, which leads to diabetes, heart disease, and our government does not address the root cause problems of issues. All they do is, when something becomes such a major crisis, they come along and they put a Band-Aid over it. And instead of putting that much money at the beginning of the problem, and maybe where you could have solved it before it became a problem. So that's what I'm asking for. I'd like to see the school board change this and talk to your state association do, and make this an issue. I'd like to see the same with the teachers union representatives who are here and anyone else who, and that this is something that is, to me, very critical and very close to home. So thank you.
Thank you, Lawrence. We appreciate your comments. And next, we have Scott Drzymski from the Cedar Rapids Community Schools Foundation. And Karen, you're with them too. Thank you. Welcome.
Good evening, everybody. Scott Drzymski, 6917 Terrazzo Drive, Northwest in Cedar Rapids, representing the foundation tonight. And Dr. Buck, directors, I appreciate your time. I just want to come back and give you an update of how things have been going for the foundation. And I do want to just mention quick, I know a lot of the folks here in the room understand what the foundation is and what it does, but I know on occasion people have a chance to see the school board meeting either online or on the Access channel. And so I just want to mention that we raise and distribute funds with the idea that we're going to support and enhance the educational experience for our students here in the Cedar Rapids School District. And it's an important mission and one that we take very seriously as board members as we do our work. And we do many, many different things, and tonight I'm just going to highlight a few of those for you. First of all, senior scholarships. One of the best parts of my role on the board is that I got to go back to Jefferson High School 25 years after I graduated and sat at senior recognition night. They have air conditioning now, by the way, so it's a lot better. But had a chance to hand out a bunch of scholarships there, and we did 34 scholarships this year, totaling $25,000 that are going to deserving students that are going to be heading off to their next level of education. And I think that's just a cool thing that the foundation gets to do. I did want to mention that we have 3 new scholarships. The John M. Seckel Memorial Scholarship. He was a volunteer at Metro High School, and this will go to a student at Metro, which we're very excited about. I think this is our 2nd Metro scholarship, so that's a big deal for us and something we want to continue to grow. The Sean Wu Memorial Scholarship, unfortunately for a student who tragically passed away in 2016 at Kennedy High School, and then the Kenneth Sharpar Memorial Scholarship to honor the longstanding baseball coach at Jefferson High School. So those are our new senior scholarships, and one of the big things we do. One of the other neat things we got to do this spring is we did this senior walk. This was our first year, and we're looking forward to next year because now everybody knows what it is, and we think that'll add to the participation and the activities that the schools have. But the idea here is to send our seniors back into their elementary schools in their gown, their cap, and with all of those medals they got at senior recognition night, and to walk the hallways and get a chance to high-five the students. And it's great for them. It's a close the circle for them as they graduate, but it also says to our elementary students, this is what your goal is. This is where you're headed. So just a neat event. We were excited to be part of that and looking forward to making that even bigger next year. I want to give you a budget update. Really good news. Things are going well. Our budget is around $415,000. We ended the year at about $442,000, and this woman standing next to me is a big part of that. Karen does a great job of fundraising, and actually we're working with her to get a chance to do even more fundraising in the future. So a $27,000 surplus this year, which is a wonderful thing. And then something that we're very excited about, it's going to be a big deal. We're nearing the point where our combined assets will reach $1 million. And that's important because that's the money that sits in strategically determined funds and raises the money that allows us to move forward with our programs and fund those scholarships each year and the different activities that our teachers do that get to enhance that educational experience for our students. I'll close by just mentioning a couple of upcoming things. This fall, we're excited to start our strategic plan. We look forward to tying that into the goals and what the district and the board here are looking to do with our schools and how we can support that. So we'll be looking for input on that and be working on that as we head into the fall. And then I will just mention November 17th at the CSPS Hall will be our Lip Sync for Learning event. And while some folks may be part of that, we would just love to have you show up, if nothing else, to enjoy the food and friendships and some of the fun that will happen again this year. No word exactly on what I might be doing that night.
That's awesome. Well, I'm looking at the front row here. I think we need to step up our administrator presence on that stage, so.
Duly noted.
Exactly, yeah, we'll work on that one.
We all have a stiff reputation for
Yeah, I like to say I came in second in the first round after the school board, but it was a distant second, so. Thank you very much, appreciate it.
Thanks to both of you, Scott and Karen. We appreciate all that the foundation does for our kids in the district, so thank you. All right, with that, we'll go ahead and move on to our consent agenda. And in the consent agenda, are there any board members that would like to pull something for comment or question? Nancy?
I'd like to pull BA 18040 for a separate vote because I'm currently on the ASAC board.
Okay. Any other items that anybody would like to pull? I did want to pull BAA 18031. It's the district insurance report. I know that we have our representative from our insurance agency that's here, Cassie Daly. So I don't know, Cassie, if you would like to come to the podium, just so there was some really good news, I think, in this latest report that I think would be helpful for all of us to hear. So thank you for all your work
Absolutely.
that you do at Millhiser Smith for us
Yeah.
on the board. And I know that the program that we have is through the School Boards Association, right?
Yep, the primary portion of it. The
Okay.
work comp is separate from that. That's with United Heartland.
So that workers' comp is the key thing. As I was going through this, it looks like really good news, and I'm just wondering if you could kind of highlight that a little bit and just talk a little bit about what the district has been doing, what you've been doing to help us.
Sure.
Because we were looking at, $1.4 million in incurred losses just a few years ago, and we're down to $360,000 this year, so something's going right, and we wanna
Yeah,
make
that's
sure we keep on
absolutely
that trajectory.
correct. So last year, we took a look at the EMC work comp policy overall, well, your work comp in general, and just, does it make sense to stay on the large deductible? Does it make sense to, go back to a guarantee fund plan? Does it make sense to self-insure? We just evaluated everything. With that, we also evaluated the companies we had you insured with, and so we looked at EMC, who you had been with for several years, and United Heartland then came in as a company who was very interested in your business. And so they came in, did a walkthrough, talked with several representatives of the school district, and presented their numbers and their philosophy and what they would do to help the district out. And it made sense to switch at that point, so we did. And some very good things happened with that. So this past year, actually, as of July 10th, total claims incurred to date were like 347,600. That compares with last year of 1.1 million, the year before of 1.3 million, the year before of 1.4 million. So some significant improvement. So just some things we've done to kind of step up that game. The district has implemented return to work. So any injured employees would be found light duty or anything to accommodate them to get them back to work safely and as quickly as possible. We also, Millhiser Smith and United Heartland sits on the district safety committee, so adding input and value there. We've evaluated all claims turned in, so we don't just want the district to report $0 claims with money reported. We'd like to see the $0 claims too. So maybe like 5 accidents have occurred in one place, but nobody really suffered an injury. What can we do to prevent that and fix that from happening and make sure those areas of concerns get addressed? So I cannot wait to see how the losses affect your next year's experience mod. That's when that'll come into play. So an experience mod of 1 is average. Anything above a 1, then the district pays a debit or additional premium for. Anything below a 1 serves as a credit. I think for the first time, crossing my fingers at least, in the last 17 years, I think, the district has a great chance of being under a 1.
Great. Any other questions for Cassie? Well, we appreciate all you're doing and our team, the administrative team, and
Yeah.
all of the staff really that are helping.
All of the staff,
to reduce,
absolutely.
those accidents and things. So that's terrific. Thank you.
Yeah.
Appreciate it. All right. With that, if there are no other items to pull for questions or comments, would somebody like to make a motion for approval of the consent agenda?
I move approval of the consent agenda with, we have that one item pulled out, right?
Yes. Is there a second? Second. This is a roll call vote, except for item BA 18040.
Director Jansen.
Aye.
Director Humbles.
Aye.
Director Meisterling.
Aye.
Director Anhalt.
Aye.
President Laverty.
Aye. And then on a separate vote, would somebody like to move that we consider BA 18040?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
And with that, this is a roll call vote as well for the agreement for the Area Substance Abuse Council 2017-18 school year.
Director Humbles.
Abstain.
Director Meisterling.
Aye.
Director Anhalt.
Aye.
Director Jansen.
Aye.
President Laverty.
Aye. Great, thank you, everyone. With that, we'll move into the board governance section. Tonight, we have the Iowa Association of School Boards legislative platform that we discuss every year, and of course, there's never an end to some of the issues that we could put forward. So I'll turn it over to you, Gary, as our legislative liaison.
Well, thank you, John.
Welcome.
Try to expedite this. First of all, these are, again, we're just making recommendations to IASB that will be acted upon by the whole body at the fall conference in November. So we need to keep that in mind, that we're one of many voices that will have input into that. As I emailed out to you to kind of move this along, I recommended three areas that I think are of importance to us and to the state. Number one, of course, would be item number 20, the supplemental state aid. We've not seen levels of funding in recent years that really meet the needs. So we need, as I think the last bullet point, a rate that sufficiently supports local school districts' efforts to plan, create, and sustain world-class schools. And that has fallen short. I would also recommend number 27, the extension of the SAVE program, the 1 cent infrastructure currently set to sunset in 27. We'd like to see that sunset removed, possibly set back to just removed or set back to a later date, say 2050 or somewhere in that range, to allow us to do more long-range planning and funding of plans. And the third one was well, I had four. I also had mental health, number 7. And what might be appropriate is just to remove in our suggestions, support increased state access to funding for mental health services. The current point says for children, just remove that and just see an increase in funding for mental health.
I think that makes sense. I mean, it's not just the children, it's obviously a family
Right.
and family and parent issue as well, so.
And I had another one on charter schools, although it doesn't directly impact us with the chatter, so to speak, that we've heard in legislation over the last year or so about expansion of charter schools and educational savings accounts. If there was an expansion, that could have an adverse effect on our own local resources. So staying with the current that says our current charter does allow for establishing charter schools, but they come under the control of the local school board. And they have to meet all federal and state accountable reporting standards.
Put forward 3 or 4, Gary.
I think,
4?
I think it's
Four.
four.
Oh, we can do
That's what
4.
they're asking, and I know Keith had said also in an email that was suggesting some concern over TIF, and I think it comes under 21 property tax, and the expansion of TIF properties in the state and in the city, and the effect it has on our school funding base. Reduces the funding base, the allowable from the business, so it's made up in personal property taxes or non-commercial. So I guess there are 5.
Gary, what number is charter schools?
29.
Gary, is there any more chatter about the encroachment of the SAVE dollars for other state use?
There's been some chatter about it, there's been some talk. The fact that they didn't act last year has some concern, because I think there was almost universal support from Iowa School Board Association, from public, and yet they failed to move that forward. So I have a little bit of concern that they have now some lag time to amend, rethink what they're doing with that
So
money.
Yeah, and Brad and I have been in contact with Phil Genery with the Iowa School Boards Association. There's, I think, concern amongst all of the education groups in the state, about SAVE and where this is going in terms of the future legislative agenda and potential tax reform. So what we had heard is that this will get tied into tax reform issues in the coming year. So I think that working together with some of our other groups and some talking points, hopefully we'll get to the key legislators that can help influence this, why this is important, and especially for us, why it's important to Cedar Rapids Community School District and our students. So we'll be working on some talking points. Some of the staff, through Dr. Buck and others, will help pull that together for us, and we're hoping that we can reach out to some of the, especially I think all of our Democrat legislators are supportive of this. At least they told us they are. Our Republican legislators have said they understand it, but again, that's where the tax reform may come from. So again, if we can help folks like Ashley Hinson and things understand why this is important to us locally and other school districts in Lynn County, I think that will help. So we'll be pulling that kind of information together to help.
Although it hasn't been outwardly voiced, I personally have a concern that they would look at. There was some objection when the governor, Branstad, I think it was 2 years ago, tried to siphon for water control and got a lot of negative feedback. But they may come back because it's a source of revenue and directed towards education, but not for infrastructure, and say, well, here's how we're going to fund some of our other educational programs. And again, it would dilute our ability to what the funds were directed for and were voted upon by local local.
And we're hearing
municipalities.
concerns about rural legislators and their concerns about smaller school districts versus, the big urban school districts, Cedar Rapids, Des Moines, and Sioux City, and those types of places. So again, trying to help them understand from all of us, which I think is a statewide effort from the school boards, school administrators of Iowa, the ISEA, and others that have an interest in making sure that kids have a safe and a reasonable type of facility to be in that's up to date, that they have quality environments, that they have technology. This helps pay for technology infrastructure as well. So all of those things are important, not just to urban kids, but to rural kids as well. So
I don't anticipate that there'd be much problem convincing and having that as one of the main priorities through IASB in the fall. I think there'll be widespread support. So I don't know where we want to go. I thought I missed one. I thought we were all good with 4, and now I've added 5. You can almost take the save away, but then, to me, I hate to do that because then it would tell some of our local legislators that we don't think that it's important, so.
So what would happen if we sent in 5?
You can check 5 boxes right here and we just press submit.
There we go.
Yeah, let's just, if everybody else is okay with that.
Unless someone else has any other thoughts, then I think we're done.
I do want to mention that the Cedar Rapids Metro Economic Alliance has a tax reform committee. So you just maybe want to be in touch with them and
That's helpful.
share
Yep.
our perspective on reform opportunities.
And I think that we mentioned that to Phil Genry with IASB when we talked to him. Yep. Thank you. All right, thank you so much. So this is a voice vote. And with that, so all of those in favor of approving the 5 items as discussed at the board table just now for the 2018 IASB legislative platform, signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? None. Abstentions? None. The vote passes. Next, we'll move into the appointment of the school district board secretary. All right, so
Do you want me to read that resolution?
that would be terrific, Mary, if you would do that.
Be it resolved that Laurel A. Day be hereby appointed as Secretary of the Board of Directors for a term of 1 year beginning July 17th, 2017, and shall qualify for said appointment by taking the oath of office in the manner required by Section 277.28, and thereafter shall hold office until a successor is appointed and qualified. And be it further resolved that this action shall be entered of record in the minutes of the school corporation.
And this is a roll call vote.
Is this open for discussion? I just
Yes.
want to make a comment that I so appreciate, and I know the whole board does, the work that Laurel does for us, keeping us on task and keeping us informed and making sure that the i's are dotted and so on and so. Laurel, you've done an outstanding job over the number of years, so.
Thank you.
This is not an objection to that.
Exactly. You make me look good most of the time, so thank you.
Most of the time.
Yeah, and Dr. Buck, Lord only knows, so we're, thank you.
Takes a village.
Takes a village, there you go, absolutely. Now, we'll go ahead and do the roll call vote.
Director Meisterling.
Aye.
Director Anhalt.
Aye.
Director Jansen. Director Humbles.
Aye.
President Laverty.
Aye. I thought about that one, but that's good. All right. We better come over here. By the flag.
By the flag.
This,
Going
you
down.
want the Iowa flag or the US flag?
Oh, the U.S.
You want both? Right in the middle? How's that? Okay. Is that good?
Yeah,
Okay.
How's it?
Do you, Laurel A. Day, solemnly swear that you will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of Iowa, and that you will faithfully and impartially, to the best of your ability, discharge the duties of the office of Secretary of the Cedar Rapids Community School District in the County of Lynn, State of Iowa, as now or hereafter required by law? If so, please respond by saying, I do.
I do.
Thank you. You guys are good.
Yeah, right?
You're good.
Yes, we are.
Yes, one more time.
But you have to read the resolution.
Poor Steve, he always ends up second on the agenda. How does that happen? I don't know. All right. Next, we'll move to the appointment of the school district treasurer, and would somebody like to read that resolution as well?
Be it resolved that Steve Graham be hereby appointed as treasurer of the Board of Education for a term of 1 year beginning July the 17th, 2017, and shall qualify for said appointment by taking the oath of office in a manner required in Section 277.28, and thereafter shall hold office until a successor is appointed and qualified. And be it further resolved that this action shall be entered of record in the minutes of this school corporation.
And I will open it for questions or comments if anybody would like to make a comment. Well,
as we,
there you go. I don't know, I was waiting for you, Gary, so.
you kind of looked my way.
I did.
As you know, we have annually putting the pressure on, Steve, but and you've been recognized for an outstanding audit and report and its due diligence that Steve does, and also I know he would lay credit to the people that work with him for doing it. So someone said we don't know what we would do without you, and I think we have you for another year. So this is good.
Any other questions or comments? Well, Steve, we do want to thank you on behalf of the board. You're terrific at, in these tough times, economics, and trying to give the best for all of our students and our staff. And with that, we appreciate that. So at this time, we do have a roll call vote for the resolution. And Laurel, I'll turn that over to you.
Director Anhall.
Aye.
Director Jansen.
Aye.
Director Humboldt.
Aye.
Director Meisterling. Aye. President Laverty.
Aye. Steve, would you like to come forward, please?
Maybe not.
No? All right. Good hand, all right. Do you, Steve Graham, solemnly swear that you will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of Iowa, and that you will faithfully and impartially, to the best of your ability, discharge the duties of the Office of Treasurer of the Cedar Rapids Community School District in the County of Lynn, State of Iowa, as now or hereafter required by law? If so, please respond by saying, "I do."
I do.
Thank you, Steve. Appreciate your help.
Thank you.
All right, and a round of applause for both of them. Thank you so much. Congratulations. All right. Next in our agenda, we'll move along to the Learning and Leadership section, and I want to welcome Mary Ellen Mosk to the podium to talk a little bit with us today about the Office of Learning and Leadership alignment with the district's strategic plan. So,
Thank you, President Laverty, members of the board. Dr. Buck, it's my pleasure this evening to talk a little bit about the Office of Learning and Leadership and some changes that are taking place in the Office of Learning and Leadership. However, I can't first do that without talking about the work that's been ongoing over the past about 18 months with our district strategic plan. And so this is a picture of our theory of action. So I'm going to be talking about the why. So why have we done some reorganization in the Office of Learning and Leadership? Well, the strategic plan and the work that was done back 18 months ago during the 15-16 school year, we know that there was a large group brought together of community stakeholders, staff members, students, parents, and they got together and they built the foundation for our theory of action, or the beliefs that we have in the Cedar Rapids School District about what we need to have a successful district for our students. The theory of action is widespread. It has 6 parts, and I'm not going to read specifically, but I know that everyone cannot see it, so I'm going to paraphrase some of the parts of the theory of action as it was developed by this broad-based group. I'm going to start with leadership. Leadership, we believe that we can empower our stakeholders to promote improvement. And one of the things about leadership is we often think of that as the adults in our organization. And I think what we've learned most recently is that even our students, specifically, we look at Kenwood Academy, Leadership Academy, and we know that that leadership is not only for the adults in our organization, but also for the students. The next one, I'll go right around, innovation. We believe that if we promote personalized learning experiences for our students and connect to their passions, that they will be successful in their future world. We believe that for student learning, we believe that students deserve high-quality instruction to prepare for a successful future. And in the culture and climate area, we believe that we need to provide a safe, diverse, and respectful environment in our schools and in our district and for our students and staff. Student ownership. We believe that students engage as partners in their learning. It's not learning for our students is not something that's done to them, it's done with them. And so we believe that. And as you listen to me read those, you probably heard me say the word future a lot. So keep that in mind as we move on. So at our district pre-service last year, we had students talk about the theory of action, and they did a much better job than I just did. And also Dr. Buck took one of those areas and spoke to it as well. We had all district staff at Kingston Stadium, and it was just a really grand event to celebrate the foundation of what we believe our school district can be for our students and our staff. Then after that, each department and each school went through and looked at the theory of action and went back and looked at a continuum of development for where are we on that continuum. Certainly, we believe that those things are what we want for our school district, but where am I as a teacher? Where am I as a paraprofessional? Where am I as a bus driver on that theory of action? And that that continuum of development went from not using, beginning, developing, applying, and innovating. And of course, we weren't all at innovating in every one of those areas. So we had to then next think about, well, what is the work that we're going to be doing to bring that theory of action to life and those beliefs to life? So team of district staff and others got together, and we began talking about, okay, so what is the work that we're going to be doing if indeed we're going to bring the theory of action to life and make sure that we're getting to that innovating stage. And so one of the things that wasn't hard is that vision. If you see in the middle, one of the first things that we arrived at was that the vision was for every learner to be future ready. And when we talk about every learner being future ready, it's not just about the students in our classrooms, it's about us as the adults in the organization too, making sure that we're ready to serve the students for the future that we're preparing them for. And you probably hear quite often, well, so we don't even know what we're preparing kids for. Well, I think it's important that we have identified that our vision and what we want for every student when they leave our system is that they are ready for their future. And that was very, very closely aligned to the theory of action, as you heard me talk about all the times that future came up in the theory of action. So what we had, and this is kind of at the point we've said, okay, so now we have our beliefs, we have our vision, and we also, so basically, what is the work we're going to do? And those 5 bold steps that you saw on the last slide, they are just reframed here. So the work that we are going to be doing to carry out the theory of action and deliver on those beliefs is, the first one is Future Ready Story. We are going to reclaim and advance the story about Cedar Rapids schools. The second one is workforce. We are going to focus, we have a goal around workforce and to create a highly engaged workforce and a world-class workforce. The third one is future ready learning. So looking at what are the learning, or what are the characteristics and competencies that our students need to have to be ready for the future and be successful when they leave our school system. So we are currently identifying future ready outcomes and measures. Then the next one is the future intercultural mindset, and looking at growing an intercultural awareness and capacity for understanding not only who our students are, who our community is, and meeting their needs and understanding their story. And the last one is the future ready facilities. So when we think about the future ready facilities, that work is well underway as well, almost a year into that, and we have about another 6 months ahead of us. But we are looking at how we can reimagine our facilities, how we can re-envision our facilities, and how we can reinvest in those facilities. So those are those 5 areas. And so we know that we have our vision now, our beliefs, our foundation, and then we have those areas of focus. So we started with a theory of action, and we've had several iterations, and a lot of work has been done, if you think about over this 18-month period, with the strategic plan. And then whoops, excuse me, I didn't mean to do that yet. There we go. And then we kind of renamed those 5 bold steps, and they are now our areas of focus, which is exactly what our schools, when their school improvement plans, their areas that they work on in the school improvement plans are also called area of focus. So we've aligned it with that. Now we'll go to the next slide. So we had our vision, I mentioned, our beliefs, and our focus areas. What we didn't have at this point in time, as you think about the strategic plan, and strategic plans, when I've been engaged in this process in the past, sometimes generally you start with your vision or your beliefs, and those things occurred for us. What we didn't have yet was our mission. What is it? So if we believe these things and we're committed to doing these things, so what is it that we are going to do? So this is kind of like the mission I think of is the what. It's what we're going to be doing to assure that we are making sure that all learners are future ready. So as you can see, one of the last things that we did, and this was just recently in April through June of this year, and so we had a lot of teachers, a lot of administrators, students, committee members engage in a process where I would say that we probably had over 30 different mission statements that we looked at and tweaked and edited and those kinds of things. But ensuring all learners experience a rigorous and personalized academic program so they have a plan for the future guided by their passions. That is what we are committed to and is our mission so that we can assure that every student, every learner is future ready when they leave us. So during this time, we are thinking about all of the work that's been done on the strategic plan, and Dr. Buck went out to several 16 listening sessions in the schools. He said that with a smile on his face.
Good.
It was good.
A lot of
Yeah,
fun,
I know,
actually.
he did. We know that also Wendy Parker, our special services director, also went out to several listening sessions. We had an engagement survey that our students and our staff members took. And as that was happening, there was kind of a convergence of information and data that we had. Not only did we have survey data and listening session data, but we also have our student achievement data that we're looking at. We have attendance data, suspensions, expulsions, those kinds of things that we're consistently looking at. And what we do at that point in time then is as we looked at those sources, it was kind of one of those things, well, if we're going to be doing this work, we have this strategic plan that looks like this, and we're going to be doing this work. Are we organized? Are we strategized in the exact way that we need to be to carry out what our promise is? So as you look at this, and some of the themes that came out of your listening sessions, Dr. Buck, and the engagement survey, would you want to comment on those? I know substitutes was one of them.
Yeah, substitutes was one of them, and we actually have a substitute task force second meeting. Is that tomorrow? Wednesday, okay. So we had a first meeting. We had probably 25 or so people engaged in that conversation, and we're doing some root cause analysis of our sub situation. And then we have another meeting later this week and follow up to try to address that issue. Student discipline and sort of all the pieces around student discipline is another topic that emerged loudly in those listening sessions. And this idea of staff feel like they get told what to do a lot and have a real desire to be empowered and I think sort of unleashed in being critical partners in the problem-solving process in the district. So those are probably three of the bigger pieces that emerged out of those listening sessions. It was good.
Yeah, thank you. And so actually some of those things that Dr. Buck spoke to I will be talking about those as we talk about how we organized ourselves to do this very important work. So as you look at our, the main thing was that we needed to align our work, our structure, and our organization with the work of the strategic plan. So if we think about the Future Ready story, the champion for our Future Ready story is actually our Director of Communications. And I'm going to, at this time, take a moment to introduce Akwi Inji, who is our Director of Communications. And we're very happy to have Akwi join us. It's kind of like she's coming back home. She was a teacher in the district for several years at Washington High School, and we're really happy to have her back as our communications director, and she is going to be championing our Future Ready story and reclaiming that story for the district. As we look at the next one, Future Ready Workforce, and we also, so the Future Ready Workforce and making sure that we have an engaged and involved workforce. The champion for that is Linda Noggle. And I'm going to introduce Linda as well. It's Linda's first day today with the district, so she got to come to the board meeting on her first day. We're happy to have Linda with us. She comes to us from Rockwell Collins with a wealth of information, human resources, and she is our executive director of human resources and talent management. So, thank you. It's great to have Linda with us as well. Then, as you look at the next two areas that we'll be focusing on, future-ready learning, and I talked about the fact that we've had a committee that has been working this spring, and we actually have identified 5 competencies that are aligned with the Iowa Core 21st Century Skills and Competencies, and for future-ready learning. And those competencies are that it's what we want for all of our students when they leave our organization, so that they are future-ready and workplace-ready. We would like them to be able to be collaborators and communicators at high levels. We would like for them to be effective communicators. I said that wrong. Collaborators and contributors should have been the first one. I apologize. Effective communicators, creators and producers, and critical thinkers, and have a sense of resilience. So those are our areas that we will be focusing on for all students, and that work will involve the Office of Learning and Leadership. And actually, Noreen Bush is leading that with me. Noreen is our new associate superintendent. And Noreen's been on the job for a little while. We're happy to have her move a little further north from College Community and join us here in Cedar Rapids. Okay, future-ready intercultural mindset. That is the area that we will be focusing on that has to do with the work we're doing with the instructional IDI, which is the Intercultural Development Inventory. And actually, Rod Dooley, who is our new Executive Director of Equity, will be leading that work. And you may know Rod's face because he was with us as our Human Resources Director and Talent Management Director for the past year. So he's just moving upstairs from downstairs. So we're really happy to have Rod with us as well. And then Steve Graham is leading the Future Ready Facilities work that's been done over the past year, and we'll be continuing with that in the next 6 months. So those are the champions for that work. So at your table, you have a little bit more information about those 5. You have a document that looks like this. Looks like the one on the, and I'm sure the people in the audience cannot read it. And basically, it goes more in depth with our goal areas and the action steps that are going to take place in each of those goal areas. And again, this has had several iterations as well. So as you look at those and you look at the work that we're going to be doing, we know that we'll have committees, and we know that we have a broad facilities committee that's engaged in that work. We've got a Future Ready Learning team that is already working very hard, and actually we have another meeting tomorrow to continue our work on those Future Ready Learning competencies. And we will continue that work in the other areas. Actually, Linda and Akwi are going to get started very soon, since Linda's tomorrow, I'm sure, right? Right now. So that we have goals, several goals and action steps under those in order to carry out the work that we need to deliver on those beliefs and making sure that we're carrying out our strategic plan. So then, what does that look like for the Office of Learning and Leadership? Well, one of the things is we don't have any new positions necessarily. We've renamed and recast some of our positions. We have 10 administrators that work in the Office of Learning and Leadership, and many, many, many teacher leaders that work in the Office of Learning and Leadership. And so while we haven't added any positions, what we've done is recast them. So I'll just talk a little bit about that. So we in the past have had a professional learning and learning supports department, and one of the things that we are learning a great deal about, especially with the Marzano framework, and I am going to share that with you in just a minute, is that we can't really separate out the behavior and the engagement and from the instruction. And making sure that those are combined, we've created a culture climate transformation department that is actually going to be focused on that support for teachers and professional learning. as well as there will be focused on the many things that our learning supports department used to focus on, which was behavior, attendance, health and wellness, mental health, for our students. So those two departments will be working together to carry out that work. And and Rod is the Executive Director of Equity, will be leading that team. And Eric Christensen is going to be on that team as well. And Eric is joining us from several years as a principal in our district. And Eric will be working with as the elementary Culture Climate Transformation Director. That's what his position will be. Also, we have Adam Zimmerman, who will be the Culture Climate Transformation Director for secondary schools, and he is not with us today because he got married on Saturday and he's on his honeymoon. So we're very happy to have Adam join us. He has been with us since July 1st, and the Culture Climate Transformation Department is just full steam ahead. They are really working hard and have some great plans for the work that they're going to do. Instructional services, one of the things that we think about with instructional services is often we think of only the academic side. And as we continue to develop those competencies and work-ready skills for our students that I spoke to earlier, we're going to make sure that we are integrating those within our curriculum. And that is a process with curriculum work and curriculum mapping that is ahead of us. Special services, one of the things that we're very interested in is more integration of general education and special education. And so we've kind of taken down some delineations. For example, prior we used to have instructional design strategists at our schools that just supported special education teachers, and we had instructional design strategists that supported general education teachers. And we've merged the two, and actually are looking at making sure that as we continue to focus on the needs of all of our students, that we're focused on all students as well as our special education students. Then one of the things that I'm really excited about is the addition of technology to the Office of Learning and Leadership. And as you think about future-ready learning and future-ready learners, we would be remiss if we didn't include technology with the work that we're doing. There's a great deal of things that are going on with technology, and we have actually 19, I think is the correct number, 19 schools that will be engaging in a blended learning opportunity with technology next year, and that is huge. Grant Wood Area Education Agency is going to be working with us, and we're really excited that 19 of our 31 schools are engaged. We thought we would get about 7 or 8. We put it out there, and there was a great deal of interest. So the blended learning, and also the technology component that Lori Bruzek, who is the Director of Technology, will be joining the Office of Learning and Leadership as well. So we're really happy to have Lori with us as well. She's been with us for many, many years in the district in technology, but is just kind of is beginning her work with us. And then the last part is Noreen Bush will be supervising the elementary, middle, and high schools. And I introduced Noreen a little bit ago. One of the things that will be happening with that is the innovation part. When Trace Pickering was with us, and he brought some fabulous innovative ideas to our district and helped us get Iowa Big started, and he remains with Iowa Big in the district. Some of the things that we want to do now is to make sure that we are integrating those innovative experiences with our general education as well in all of our schools. There are innovative things going on in many, many, many classrooms, not just in a Iowa Big or a Blend Ed or a magnet school in our district. So that's purposeful integration of the innovation into the Office of Learning and Leadership. Then as we think of teacher leadership, our teacher leadership system I'm going to just grab a couple of the statistics because I just filed a report here recently. There were 358 teachers in our teacher leadership system, and they fulfilled 48 different roles this past school year. One of the things that I am very proud of is that we have maintained now for 3 years in a row, we've maintained 87% of the teacher leaders stay in their positions until the next year. And so when I talk about teacher leadership and the changes in teacher leadership, it's not necessarily that we are creating new positions, it's that we're recasting, just like we have with the administrative positions in the Office of Learning and Leadership, so that the form fits the function. If we think about our strategic plan as the function, we need the form of our teacher leadership system and our Office of Learning and Leadership to fit that function. One more, yeah. And the other thing is that we have an 86.3% retention rate for new teachers in our district. And that's a really nice number for the statistics that are, if you look at statewide and nationwide, we are retaining a high level of teachers in our system. And that was one of the emphasis of the teacher leadership theory of action when that first came out. So we're entering our 4th year now. We've made some modifications each year based on the data that we get in our teacher leadership survey, based on the feedback that we get from administrators and teacher leaders as well. So informal feedback and then that survey feedback as well. So one of the main things, so professional learning facilitators, school improvement. Well, Kathleen Ziegler was in that position, and she is now a principal. What we've seen is some of our teacher leaders have left us to become administrators, either in our district or other districts. So we are repurposing that position a little bit to be aligned with the work that's going to be done with intercultural competency in the Culture Climate Transformation Department. So that job has more of an emphasis on the intercultural development inventory work that we've been engaged in over the past year, about year and a half. And so that's one position that was recast. Learning supports facilitator K-12. In the past, that was someone that worked primarily with our counselors. And one of the things that we believe that we needed to align that more closely with our future, Every Learner Future Ready. So that position is now called Future Ready Learning Facilitator, Learner Facilitator. And Paul Hayes is actually in that position, and he's worked with counselors for quite a few years. Grantwood Area Education Agency induction. Last year, we did not, we had the Grantwood Area Education Agency induction program. We used that program for 1st and 2nd year teachers at the secondary level, and for some additional elementary special education teachers, but we did not use it for elementary because it was, at the time, we wanted to make sure, we felt like it was cost prohibitive. It was never because we didn't think it was a high quality program, because it is a very high quality program. What we learned from the data, and it was very much data driven, was that we could not support the program in the same way that they could at Grantwood with the induction program that they have there. So we will be, all of our teachers will be working with Grantwood, all of our new teachers, 1st and 2nd year, will be working with Grantwood next year with the induction program. Then I did talk a little bit about this before. The general education and special education instructional design strategists had been separate in the past, and now we've put all of those teachers, they will have the same professional learning and the same work ahead of them, working with all teachers. John?
So just to go back a little bit here, so the learning supports facilitator K-12, is that working with school counselors or something?
They will. So if you think about the work that they're going to be doing, they're going to be working with K-Cooter Incorporated, K-Navigator, as we look at those tools that we have available for our students in 8th grade through 11th grade currently to look at what are their future interests, what are their passions, what are their confidences. There's a confidence assessment, and then there's an interest assessment that goes along with K-Navigator. So we have, our students need a yearly plan starting in 8th grade through 11th grade, and that job will focus quite a bit on that, as well as Cooter. We will be start to use that this year, about mid-year, in our elementary schools as well. And so that's a pretty, I mean, that's really a major focus. And since, I mean, if as our vision is Every Learner Future Ready, that position will have quite a bit to do with Cooter, and then also working with all of our school counselors. So I want to clarify that. And then one of the things that I'm sad to say is that our model teacher program, we did not have interest. That's wrong. I didn't say that right. It wasn't that we didn't have interest in that program, and we had amazing model teachers. We had 22 model teachers this past year, and we've had about that same amount each year, but we weren't getting the number of visits to those classrooms, and I really do think it had a lot to do with the substitute shortage, that teachers couldn't get out of their classrooms to see what was happening in a model teacher classroom. And we had about 12 visits this year. So as you look at that, it really was not, we felt like that was something that we would not have. I would love to have that if we get in a position where we have opportunities for teachers to visit other teachers' classrooms more, knowing that their classroom would be covered. So that's hopefully something that we can look at on an
Mary Ellen,
annual basis.
Did we have state monies that were supporting that program specifically for a model teacher program, or was that something the district was paying for?
So it was part of teacher leadership. We receive about $310 per student for teacher leadership. It's about a $5.3 or $5.4 million budget. And so it's all of these positions. We use 100% of our funds for teachers' salary and benefits in Cedar Rapids. So it was funded by that as well. So one of the things, and this is the new art and science of teaching, and Brad mentioned in his comments that we had many teachers here today and administrators here today learning about the instructional framework, Marzano's instructional framework. And it was great when Stephen Probert introduced the presenter. It just doesn't get much better than Bob Marzano. And so we had a team from the district that were our teacher leaders in the district attend a session in Colorado, I believe. I know Tanya Johnson is here. I know you were in that group as well, to learn about Marzano's instructional framework. So we had been using Marzano's instructional framework. The new art and science of teaching is just out. It's 2017. So the framework has been revised a little bit. So what you see on the screen is the framework for instruction that is the research-based framework from Marzano. And one of the things that I wanted to draw your attention to as we think about the merging of and not thinking that behavior and is separate from the instruction piece, look at the context. Look how much is in the context, and that is really the work that we're talking about that we will be doing. That's not saying that we're not going to focus on content and we're not going to focus on the feedback portion, but as you look at those 43 elements of Marzano, that is the work that we will be focusing on in our Culture Climate Transformation Department. That is the work that is going to be integrated with instruction. And as I saw this new framework, I was like, oh my gosh, we really did the right thing. It's great. It's great when you realize that you did the right thing. So again, we had educators here today and tomorrow, and we will have 2 more days next week. Probably close to 300 educators in our district will participate in that new learning. You have in front of you then the Office of Learning and Leadership organizational chart. The thing that I would just point out is the work that we are going to be doing is at the very bottom, in the blue. Our focus areas are leadership development, and that's not just for administrators, it's for teacher leaders and administrators. Our focus is also system design for equity as we continue with our work with intercultural development. And our work is going to be focused on instruction, making sure that we have personal learning opportunities for students, behavior. We're looking at all those areas in Marzano's elements. And then the teacher leadership chart, this is the same organizational chart that we've had since we began, where we have an Office of Learning and Leadership leadership team that supports the people whose job title is in the blue box, and they work here at the ELSC, and they're either full or part-time release teachers. And then those teachers support the teachers that in the positions that are in the red print, such as building leadership teams, department chairs, instructional design strategists, induction coaches, and PBIS leaders. Oops, sorry. Whoa. Okay, I went to the wrong one. So that last slide was just a picture of some students, and it takes us back to the fact that this is all about every learner's future ready. Thanks, Justin.
Thanks for saving her, Justin.
Yeah, no kidding. I got clicker happy.
All right.
So I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have about the organization and its alignment with the theory of action and the form to fit function part.
Question from the board, Mary?
Unless I wore you all out.
Oh, no. We have questions.
I don't have a question. I just have a comment, and I want to applaud the work that's been done in the district. We've talked about a lot of these things over the years. We talked about individual learning plan for each student in the district, but we never got there. We just never had the momentum, the drive, the leadership to get there. So we're thrilled. I know this is the focus of our board, and you're able to make this all happen. When I was reading the agenda, I was just so excited about the great opportunities our students are going to have in our district, and just applaud the work that you're all putting into this. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And we are really looking forward to pre-service again this year, where we can share the work that's been done. I know Dr. Buck has some big ideas for that, and we definitely want to include our.
Prepare yourselves. I was looking at you, Audrey, for some reason.
Yeah, we've got these team of people that will, yeah.
That was blessed.
Gary?
I have a couple of questions. One, I probably shouldn't have interjected earlier when you're going through, because it was a ways back, but when you were talking about special services and merging at the schools support services with the regular services at the schools, right?
And here as well. And here as well. We've reorganized ourselves at the ELSC so that we are working collaboratively, more collaboratively than we have in the past. That's not to say we haven't been working together, but we are purposefully planning together for our students, whether they're special education or general education, to narrow that achievement gap.
Will that result in a reduction of staff between the two, or?
Actually, we increased our IDS by 5 FTE.
Okay,
We were able to increase that this year, and those were placed at, I believe, 3 secondary schools and 3 elementary schools. So it was like 5.5 FTE we added.
and along with that, I know that there are the special services is, most of, if not all of their funding is through special categorical funding. Does it allow us to commingle those services and stay within the regs of the?
Yeah,
I'm sure it
that's a
does,
great
otherwise we
question.
wouldn't be doing
It does, or we wouldn't be doing it, because I checked on that. And the funny part was, many districts, when they started out, did it that way. We did not, and it was partially because of our financial situation at the time. And so we did not do it that way. But yes, many districts started off that way.
And we're very sensitive to that issue. We have checked and rechecked and rechecked to make sure that's all
Yeah, so
appropriate. So,
whenever we do anything that we're not quite sure of, there's amazing people at the state that will tell you what you can and can't do. Yeah.
And again, it's not that I lack confidence, but I think that's the role of the board, to serve as that oversight, to make sure
Absolutely.
that,
great question.
that things are going right. The other is maybe some questions around the teacher leadership. As I look at it, and as my recollection of the program as it was started, it was to involve teachers in giving them an input into job expansion, being able to look at different roles. And as that program was set up, the teachers, or there was teacher input in the development of the plan that was submitted, and ongoing consultation as it goes through. I think there was an advisory committee that was in our original application that I think still holds.
The advisory committee was our group that was with the NEA project that we were engaged in for a couple of years.
Okay, but didn't the initial grant have some kind of a component of an oversight of the spending of the funds and so on, particularly involve teachers and the teacher association and so on?
Oh, yes, yes.
In the
Okay.
original design.
Is that,
Yeah.
where does that piece fall now? Because again, I think we're still operating under that same application. And the other is, although yes and no, it's kind of when I hear that we have some people leaving the teacher leadership to go into administration, one of the thoughts behind the development of the teacher leadership was that people would feel that they would be able to advance their career without having to go. Before this program, it was kind of a dead end, the classroom, and if you really wanted to advance your career, it looked like the only opportunity was to go into administration. So I applaud the fact that they've had the opportunity to do it, but I wonder if are we sliding on providing full application of the teacher leadership. So some broad-based questions, but I think primarily what's the input from the staff to the direction. I see a lot of ESC, a lot of top-down when I look at the leadership chart and organizational chart.
So one of the ways that we gather information is when we're out in the buildings. One of the things that is what we say to the folks that work here at the ELSC that are teacher leaders is, we don't want to see you here. And quite honestly, they're here very little because they're out in the buildings. So a lot of feedback comes from the teacher leaders that are out. When the OLL administration is out in buildings, we get loads of feedback from teachers about the teacher leadership system. The comprehensive survey that we did this year, I think we had about 750 or 800 teachers participate in that. We get feedback in that way. And then one of the other things that we do is the continuum of development, so that the people that are in the teacher leadership positions have the opportunity to reflect on their growth in that system. And they work with their building administrator and have a conversation as part of their individualized learning plan, ILPDP. Those are just some of the ways that we get feedback or.
Well, and I think an indicator of general happiness in the teacher leadership system is the retention rate of people in those programs. I mean, we have 87% of those people that have stayed in those jobs, and some of those people that have left for different career opportunities. And I'm heartened by people that get into those roles and have really robust instructional backgrounds to move into administration. So long gone, hopefully, are the days of people coming into administration because they didn't feel like they had another opportunity, but rather have built a skill set in instruction, which is the most important work in schools, and now with that background and robust set of experiences are going to impact schools from a principal position. So I honestly believe our data set speaks to sort of general happiness in those teacher leadership roles.
I think it would be interesting. I mean, obviously, we're talking about our school district in particular, and we know the history of how this was developed, but statewide, obviously, with budget issues and all kinds of things going on, changes to the Iowa Core and all kinds of crazy things happening. What's the statewide data showing us in terms of teachers? I mean, we know what the intent was for this program. We're seeing some of our teachers doing administrative work, which I think what you're saying, Dr. Buck, makes some sense, but what is that baseline maybe? And again, you can't answer that right now probably, but it might be helpful information just for us to put in context later
Sure.
on if it's out there.
Sure.
Other questions from the board? Well, no? Okay, I did want to take a moment from the board specifically to thank and welcome Akwi and Noreen and Linda and all of you others that have new roles and changed, metamorphosized roles within the district, which this chart definitely helps. We're here as a board, to help make sure that all students have the opportunity to succeed. And we only have one employee, and that's the superintendent, Dr. Buck. And but we're so grateful that you're here with us and working with us together. It really does take a team to do this, and it's certainly not from the board, dictating or anything like that. This is really a team effort. We're not education experts. We all have different backgrounds. Some of us know more about certain things than others. So all of this is important to us, and that's why these board meetings and these conversations are so helpful. And we will have some work sessions where we can get maybe a little bit deeper into some of this work. But I do want to welcome all of you to Cedar Rapids Community School District, and thank you for that. I think the board would love to get a copy of the PowerPoint. There's some really good
Sure.
information. Is it in the, okay, so, and the update, the Marzano part, is that updated, that's on there?
I
Okay.
hope so, yeah.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, I think
All right,
Justin got it
awesome.
in. Right, I just got excited about it today and hadn't
Yeah.
had it, so.
Okay,
sorry.
awesome.
The one thing when I was going through the teacher,
Justin's good.
when I was
Justin's
going
good.
through the teacher leadership positions, one of the things I missed that is important, I think, as we've been talking about Marzano, is that I mentioned earlier that we would be using Grantwood AEA for the induction program. So we did recast one of those positions that was professional learning facilitator induction to facilitator of systemic teacher growth. So that will be, Connie Starr is actually in that role and has been facilitating that, and Tanya Johnson is going to be working with her, and that was part of the reason Tanya went to the training in Colorado as well. So,
That's great. And again, I think that those collaborations and communications between teachers, their association, again, through Grantwood AEA and all the other districts, communication is the key to this to help us all move forward. So I'm excited, as Mary said, the blended learning opportunities, integration of technology. There's a lot of excitement in all of this. And I think, again, as we'll listen to Dr. Buck a little bit about his goals. Again, this is just leading up to us as a board thinking about board goals and overall district goals and how all of this ties together. So as administrators, teachers, really think about that as we listen to Dr. Buck now as he goes into his goals for the coming year, and then give us input as a board going into our August meetings about what's most important for us as a board to support the work that Dr. Buck and all of you and down into the classrooms and the teachers one-on-one with those students and parents. What is it that we as a board can do at that 30,000-foot view with strategies and policies? We're advocating for funding, but what else can we do with those things? What needs are there that we can help at our level? So that's kind of where I think we're all thinking about this right now. So thank you, Mary Ellen, for all that information. So with that, we will turn it over to you, Dr. Buck.
Yeah, thank you. So a little over 2 years ago, I had the privilege of being interviewed by the board for this position as superintendent. And what was exciting is some of the conversation that emerged, guided by the questions, but in discussion. And really, a lot of the priorities of the board came out in those conversations. And this is a board that was and is focused on innovation, was focused on, our finances were part of that conversation. And then this idea of equity and what could be done and at that time we were thinking about it as closing the achievement gap. And that was one of the primary parts of the conversation with sort of these other flavors of innovation and personalization. And so a board that was excited and focused on some things, and the good news is happened to choose me to be the superintendent to try to help bring that to life in my role and through my responsibilities. So in our first year together, the goals were framed around, part of the work was around this theory of action. So what is the belief system, and what do we really believe about, and it's really primarily driven around this idea of closing the achievement gap. And a lot of that conversation initially was structured around academics. So we have data sets that indicate that children in sort of the four main categories: racially and ethnically diverse kids, children for whom English is not their first language, children who meet the federal definition for free or reduced lunch, and students with individualized education plan. There's gaps in the data between proficiency rates of those students and students that aren't in those categories, and even more pronounced if students are in more than one of those categories. So we talk about that as the achievement gap, and that has morphed to the opportunity gap. So that first round of our goals together really tried to think about how can we deliver on that. We talked about one responsibility for me to go out and build relationships within our schools and outside of our schools. And so you may recall that my first year in the district, spent a lot of time in schools, in classrooms, working to build on those relationships, and out presenting to groups, meeting with groups, and just sort of getting known in the community. And also part of that conversation then was this idea of a theory of action. What are the unifying beliefs in our district? If we brought a large group of people together, what would emerge? And you saw that here tonight, 6 things: equity, leadership, student ownership, we can go right on down the line. So that emerged out of that work. Then what and finances, and the good news is our financial situation is improving. So, so that's in there because, that's sort of runs the machine. Then the second year, as we started to talk about what would be important next, what became important next is this conversation about some strategic planning. So how do you take these? So how do you take these beliefs and bring them to life in a way that becomes more strategic and intentional? So a lot of the work this year has been that strategic planning work, and what's emerged out of that is these 5 bold steps that we're talking about. And it's been fun because we sort of gingerly talk about them, because we're going to do a big rollout on August 27th with staff and do a really cool thing. And so staff haven't really heard it directly, but if they watch these board meetings, they would know about them because we've been talking about them. I've presented to community and vetted them through others. And so it's sort of been in and around, and so that's sort of kind of interesting. In addition to strategic planning, we had a combined goal around continued conversation about finance, and in particular our authority position. So our cash position is strong and has been strong, and our authority position continues to improve. And what also emerged out of that was conversation about facilities. So what should we do about a long-range plan related to our facilities? And so we've pulled together a group, and we've spent a significant amount of time with a number of opportunities for public input on where we're headed in the facilities conversation. And so in my evaluation at the end of last year, a few items that emerged out of there that I would just want to honor, and sort of I think they're the next logical step in this work. And you hear it tonight. The strategic planning work, the intentionality of moving these positions, this isn't just like giving people a new title. This is physically moving them, working to take down the silos, and this acknowledgement that if we truly are going to close the opportunity gap is not just an academic gap. There's also behavioral data gap within that, and they are 2 sides of the same coin. So this whole idea of culture, climate, transformation, and sort of some of these things you heard tonight, it's sort of hard, I'm sure, or difficult to hear this for the first time and understand what's really happening systemically here to drive the conversation, which was our initial conversation together about innovation and closing that gap, because closing that gap happens on both sides of that coin. So the next logical step, and one of the things that emerged out of the conversation in my evaluation, and we should consider for shared goal work going forward for this year, I would just put this out here for consideration. One of them is significant conversation about the use of data and making the data available to staff in authentic and meaningful ways. So we have committed to 2 data analysts. We have committed to a modernized data system, and the work I think would be important would be some goal around data use and data definitions and what we're going to say as this strategic plan rolls forward and we have these 5 bold steps. What are the metrics that we're going to use to demonstrate that we're making progress across this work? So I think data use in some form, I would just invite that as part of a conversation related to goal, and that emerged as part of my evaluation. Another piece of it, and this is just sort of an interesting one, is related to this strategic vision role. So one of the roles of the superintendent is to provide some of the strategic vision casting. And over the last year, for a variety of reasons, this isn't any criticism or anything, have been pulled into deeper into the weeds than might otherwise be seen in a district with 16,000 kids. And we could talk about the myriad of reasons for why that occurs. So one of the things I think that's gotten sort of lost in that is some of the relational piece. So worked hard in that first year on relational stuff, spent some time in the weeds in year 2. And so as part of that strategic visioning work, how does the superintendent return to a role with more relational focus, strategic visioning focused, vision casting and working in and amongst people? So I think that, and part of that, what you see is the recasting of the roles and the recasting of this team so that we get people strategically placed to do the work. I think probably more intentionally and aligned, maybe that's a fair way to think about it, so that as superintendent I can maybe return to some of the more traditional or typical work of a superintendent in a district this size. And to, so an example would be, we're working with the Cedar Rapids Economic Development Group and trying to reach out to that group and some others, because what's become clear is, as a district, we are not going to solve this problem of these challenges that face us without significant community involvement, even better relationships with our nonprofit partners. And we have many of them, and we're proud of those in Cedar Rapids. So how do we even better align that, take the noise out of the system, and kind of all those pieces? So I'm not doing that part as well as I'd hope, but I think there's just a nuance in the role, and if we make that part of the goal work, we're probably more likely to get to that. And then the third one that emerged is this idea of diversity in our employment plan. So I've been here starting my third year now, and we still don't have a plan. We've been talking about a plan. We continue to bounce at about 5% of our staff being racially and ethnically diverse. And so that needs to become a more important, pronounced priority. And if we share that as a goal, it's more likely that we can deliver on a minimum a plan by the end of this year. So those are a few things that emerged with the recognition that finances will continue to remain a priority in the background, that because our authority position, while it's improving, isn't where we really need it to be long-term, we'll need to continue. So I don't know if we keep that as a priority, or just a recognition that remains in conversation. And then the facilities work is underway. We've extended that timeline. So originally that timeline, I think, was set for October. It's been extended to December, so we're going to get another opportunity for public feedback in there. And so we could talk about if that wants to be, if we want to have that as one of the goals as well, or if it's just a recognition that work has been kicked off, it's robustly underway, it's planned, and so those are the kinds of things I think thinking about relative to goals. So.
Comments or questions from the board? Nancy?
I just have a comment. Thank you for all of your work and listening to the concerns and really putting some things into action. So, and you didn't leave, and you.
Yeah, there we go.
Here,
yeah,
'cause
I'm lucky
we
to have a great
unloaded
board
a
and
lot
great
on
people.
you.
Yeah, there's a couple moving parts.
Well, I think I also want to echo what Nancy said, and thank you for everything that you've done. And it is reaffirming to me as a parent, as a community member, and as a board member to know that you walk the walk. You are genuine in your belief that it is the children first, and they are our future, and we need to pay attention to them. And giving all of these goals that you've identified clearly not only put those children first, but it gives their educators and our administrators the tools that they need to continue to move that forward. Using data, understanding the data, not just throwing numbers because you can throw numbers.
Oh,
So
thank you.
I think that's wonderful.
Yeah, thanks. I get to work with a lot of great people. So.
I think it's been clear you've been challenged in the last year. We've talked about that. It's in the weeds, so to speak. Some very unusual situations that a lot of superintendents wouldn't face all in that first year or two. So we do, as we've told you, appreciate that very much. I think one of the key things is you mentioned that this is part of this community. It's part of, it's going to take the whole community to come together and really support this. And just to remind, we are the Cedar Rapids Community School District. And just for everybody in the audience, all of our teachers, all of our students, this is a public school district. And as board members, that's who elects us. We're there to represent the public, the students, the parents, the employers, the retired folks. I mean, anybody in our community, all one and all. So, as we look at these decisions, I think, we're thinking about that constantly. And again, I think several before me have always reminded me that on our name placards here, all of our decisions, how will this decision impact students? And we appreciate that you've kept this in mind as you've worked with us the last couple of years on this journey. And we know that this is going to be a journey. You've got a great team together. We're excited about it. And I think as the board comes together and talks at our August meeting, kind of our work session about our goals, tying that in with your goals, the vision work that has been done already in terms of theory of action and the strategic plan that all the administrators and staff will be implementing in the coming year. we really need to sit back again and take in all of this and think about what we as a board can do to support that at the highest levels. So thank you for this. I think it's right on target, and we appreciate that. So, all right. Any other comments or questions? All right. With that, we will go ahead and just remind everybody that the school board calendar is out there, and appreciate you leaving any comments and your evaluations for us. And with that, the meeting is adjourned. Thank you so much. Thank you.